welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV, and here we are once more in Kugane, where this Kaiten has a quest for us. Dramatis Personae. Welcome, my lady. There's a young maiden here who would speak with you. Miss, the adventurer has arrived. And here she is, the liberator of both Doma and Alamigo in the flesh, Amnida Mevrilla, correspondent for the Raven. You may recognize me from my expose on the secret lives of the homunculi? No, but say, do you have a sister? I vaguely remember someone with that name, a little bit older than you, also a reporter, from a botanist quest? Is there a problem? Muji? That would be my sister. People mistake us all the time. Same profession, you see, and we do bear a passing resemblance. When last I heard, she was still assigned to the botanist guild in Gridania, poor thing. Yeah, she did something with me. But enough small talk. It's not for nothing that I've been standing here since yesterday morning, on the off chance you'd pass by. What? No, I'm here because, actually, it's best you heard it from Alma. I'm but an observer. Alma, come, I found her! Is this the adventurer of whom you spoke? Indeed it is. Please, I beg of you, find my father. You are his only hope. Bit more detail, perhaps? It's all right, Alma. We're attracting unwanted attention. Might I suggest a change of venue? We will await you before the Prima Vista, where theatre barge has a berth at the airship landing. Okay, airship landing. As I said before, I think it's better we continue this conversation in the privacy of a young lady's barge. It's not that I don't trust anyone here, it's simply that I don't trust anyone here. A gate guard Minagumo has been instructed to look out for you. In future, speak with him when you wish to gain admission to the docks. Thank you for coming, Serenia. You're probably wondering why I've summoned you to an airship and a Garlean one at that. The big one, over there. Allow me to explain on the shuttle. shuttle pilot's gear looked interesting. Not something I would wear, but for what is basically a random NPC, that looked rather fancy. The Prima Vista serves as both stage and home to the Majestic Imperial Theatre Company. You can keep the dirk in your drawers. No one here is a member of the Imperial Army, nor are there any spies within the troop. At least, no known spies. Ask anyone and they will readily attest, the Majestic Imperial Theatre Company are the finest practitioners of the dramatic arts to be found anywhere on the 3 great continents, and beyond. They have admirers throughout the Empire and its territories, and even boast a sizable following in Gridania, hence my assignment to their story. It's a little-known fact, outside Garlean at least, that the late Emperor was a devoted patron of the arts who supported various theatre troupes to the tune of much coin. Indeed, Solus was so enamored with Her Majestic's players that he ordered the construction of his very airship that the troupe might perform in every corner of the Empire. When his grandson took the throne, however, everything changed. Now all the theatre troupes, domestic and foreign, must submit their works for approval by the Central Imperial Board of Censors. If a play is deemed vulgar or inflammatory, it is banned and the troupe denied their writs of transit. The worst offenders, well, they never heard from again. This policy effectively left playwrights with one of 2 options: compromise their creative integrity to curry favor with his radiance, or put down their quilts altogether. The principal of a Majestic, however, chose a third option: to express his disapproval for the new Emperor's policies obliquely in ostensibly unpolitical works. Pray forgive me for my earlier outburst. I'm Alma Lexendale, daughter of Principal Genomus Sen Lexendale. Perhaps you have heard of my father's latest play, the Zodiac Brave Story? On the surface, it's an innocent retelling of a well-known Garlean fairy tale, hardly worthy of a censor's attention. But beneath, it's something quite different. A fact the censors failed to spot when they approved the manuscript for public performance. The play quickly became a huge success. The common folk loved its fantastical story, and the learned classes appreciated its true message. By the time the Imperial Board of Censors realized their mistake, it was too late. No longer in a position to prohibit the performance outright, without admitting fault, they took aim at the company's purse strings instead. Before long, noble patrons began to withdraw their support, fearing to be associated with the troupe, and by the end even the learned felt compelled to feign ignorance. By bleeding the Majestic of their funding, the censors robbed them of their voice. And none of this made any clearer as to why you're here. Right. Allow me. Hello, Sid. What are you doing here? Ah, right, Garleans. Friendly Garleans. I've known Genomus since we were students at the Magitech Academy. When I heard his daughter was in Kugane looking to enlist the aid of an adventurer, I felt compelled to give her your name. Sorry for not announcing myself sooner, old friend. Genomus and I were from different worlds, but that served to fuel our friendship. Many were the nights we would prattle on into the wee small hours, warm flagons of peated ale numbing our minds to the other's naive ideologies. Yet no matter where our conversation began, it would invariably end with him telling me how he was going to change the Empire from the inside out. The troupe was to be his path into the people's heart. Even after the Empire forced him from his home, Genomus never gave up hope that his work might change the world. art will ever strain against artificial bounds and borders, man-made walls and misguided wars. It is in such times of uncertainty that we must embrace our calling and take to the skies, so others might do the same. What I'm trying to say is, rather poorly I concede, is that not all Garleans are hewn from the same stone. Just as there are those who pledge their lives to the Empire would never think to question the authority of its leaders, there are those like Alma's father and myself whose love for their country does not blind them to its flaws. Still, try selling that sack of sunflower to an Alamegan or a Dorman who has watched his family consumed in the flames of a Magitek Reaper. How many Eorzean adventurers do you think would leap at the opportunity to help an Imperial search for a missing father, and in Garlean territory no less? But you're different. You've seen enough to know that the line between good and evil is not defined by race, color, or creed. So what say you? I would make a poor adventurer if I were to shy from adventure. Indeed. Now that you understand the nature of the task, perhaps Alma can provide some insight as to where we might begin our search. Shortly before my father disappeared, he began work on his next play, a successor to the Zodiac Brave story. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Please follow me. Through adventure and hardship, young Delita, a boy of common blood, becomes a hero, culminating in the birth of a mythical kingdom of Ivalice. But that is where the story ends. There are no records of anything that follows. Was Principal Genomus simply going to invent something? My father believed that he had discovered evidence of a second hero, one whose efforts went largely unnoticed, but without whom Delita would never have risen to the throne. His was the next tale he wanted to tell. The true Zodiac Brave story. A second hero? According to my father's studies, this young man was one of Delita's closest friends and confidants. That is, until the untimely passing of Delita's sister forced the two to part ways. Yet the unnamed hero continued to provide aid to his friend by thwarting the machinations of those who would scheme against Delita, thus paving the way for the pauper's rise to regent. You must forgive me, but I've never heard anyone make such claims. How exactly did your father come by this information? That is a long story. One which begins and ends with Jeromus becoming lost in the very legend he sought to lay bare. Even as far back as our academy days, Ivalice had Jeromus firmly in its grasp. He flatly refused to believe the story was just a fairy tale. And so, when he was finally driven out of Garlemald, it was only natural that he should choose this of all places as his refuge. Was it not, Alma? That's correct, Master Garland. It has long been my father's belief that the ruins of ancient Ivalice lie beyond Naxia, buried beneath the sands of the Dalmasca desert. Poor Dalmasca. The kingdom prospered in relative isolation for countless generations, until the Empire came calling. When not touring, my father would organize expeditions into the Damascus desert to search for proof of Ivalice's existence. Sometimes he would bring back strange artifacts, ancient tomes and crystals. Crystals unlike any other. My father called them auracite and claimed they were vital to proving his theories. This is one such crystal. By the 12, it's magnificent! Ivalician legend tells of crystals bequeathed by the gods and of those who would be kings. It's during this quest to gather auracite that young Delita rises to prominence. I must have heard the tale 1,000 times from my nursemaid, but that is all it ever was. A tale. My father would often tell us how the auracite spoke to him. At the time we assumed he was speaking figuratively, that the stone's beauty roused his muse. But then he began to act strangely. How so? Following our arrival here in Ningashi, my father spent most of his time cloistered in his chambers, poring over his past research, and though he was alone, we could oft hear him in conversation. It was not uncommon for my father to recite the lines as he wrote them, but it soon became clear that this was something else. It was as if he was talking to my mother who passed several winters gone. Might this not have been out of mere loneliness, or perhaps the strain of your flight from Garlean? Possibly, but that would not explain the voices which answered him. Alma, who are these people? I told you I did not require any help finding father, especially from outsiders. So good of you to join us, Ramza. Allow me to introduce... Enough, Master Sid. We may be shunned by the Empire, but we are still Garleans, and we still have our pride, unlike some it seems. We require neither the aid nor the pity of foreign rebel. Have you forgotten where you are, brother? It is we who are the foreign rebel. This land and its customs are all but unknown to us. We would be fools to conduct our search without a proven guide. Your sister is right, Ramza. As for my good friend here, your mistrust is ill-placed. I will personally vouch for her character. In all the time I've known her, she has never once let anything as insignificant as race or creed color her judgment. You are lucky to have her. But we would have you, Master Garland. Why do you refuse us? You know why. Until this affair with Omega is resolved, my hands are tied. It pains me to refuse you and your sister. But it pains me far more to leave Genomus to his fate. I'm sorry. You need not apologize. I let my emotions get the better of me. After what happened in Ravenasta, it may be time to admit we are out of our depth. My brother's last expedition met with tragedy in the ruins of the capital city. He barely escaped with his life. The Empire turned Ravenasta into a death trap. You were a fool to set foot there without a proper escort. I realize that now, Master Garland, but at the time I saw an opportunity to rescue our father and I took it. Whatever led you to believe your father was in Damascus' capital? My father's fascination with Ivalician legend began with a trip to the antediluvian city long before the war. Call it a premonition, but something tells me that is where he has returned. Now you must excuse me. I need some time to think. Then, Alma, I shall leave you and your brother in Serenia's capable hands. She has ever repaid my trust with interest. You would do well to grant her yours. Thank you, Master Garland. We will not forget this kindness. Oh, how I miss father. Sid didn't bid me farewell. This is going my right up. Master Garlean seems to think highly of you, so I will withhold judgment until after the massacre. Now, if you know the story, this is very strongly, this quest is very strongly based on the story of Final Fantasy Tactics, and with a few side notes of Final Fantasy XII because both play in the same world. Ivalice. Dalmasca is nestled in a forgotten corner of the Empire's outermost territories. I do not foresee any trouble from the standing army, but would suggest committing to memory the locations of each of the barge's exits, just in case. As for the flight itself, the currents above Dalmasca are as wild as the land below. You may want to hold on. It's a massive ship. Like the Colosseum in Italy up here, yeah? As the theater stage to perform anywhere. We'll complete our descent to Rabanasta in the shuttle. Ramsa! I thought I made myself clear, Alma. The capital is simply too dangerous. Father would never forgive me if I were to lose you trying to rescue him. Come, we're wasting time. That pose didn't work with Alma's dress. The animation is simply too stiff for that. The royal city of Rabanasta. And the shuttle kinda looks like the wet wings from Final Fantasy IV. According to Father, Rabanasta was already a thriving city some 1,000 years ago. But after performing several private excavations beneath the so-called Desert Sapphire, my father came to the conclusion that it was not the first settlement to stand here. Then your father believes Rabanastre sits atop the royal city of Lexalia, capital of Ivalice? But if that's true, it could change history. We would be famous. Famous? Are you sure you don't mean rich? You're kinda all alike. Parasites grown fat on the sweat and suffering of others. Bold words for a boy of but 16 summers. And what, pray tell, do I have done to deserve such spite? I only wish to learn the truth behind the disappearance of the Empire's foremost playwright. If that should lead to something bigger, well then, I would be the worst reporter in the realm if I did not pursue it. Can we just go? Please? Yes, we can argue about this now, or we can return to the Prima Vista and report to our army of adventurers, but it's time to begin the expedition. I humbly suggest the latter. You see, it's as I said, brother. Let them come to us. Should we kill them now? No, the time is not right. When has that stopped us before? Fool, do you see that one? Slayer of gods, they call her. Warrior of light. And with that, we unlock the royal city of Rabanastre, the first of alliance raids, where we go with our army of adventurers, namely 24. But not this episode. We do that next time. Until then, I am Ace, and don't get lost.